This is just a rough draft of random shit that needs a little bit of love in Hunt Showdown. It's really just, I don't want to downplay it by saying quality of life improvements, but it's things that lead people to give reviews saying that Hunt Showdown is clunky, Hunt Showdown is a good idea but poorly executed, it's a bad game, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. What you saw me testing earlier was the very, very odd aiming that is found in Hunt Showdown. It's far less drastic on the lower sensitivities, which is what I moved to based on suggestion just recently. But on the high sensitivities, very, very clear how there's a strange hidden value. I call it aim input thresholding. There's a certain value that you need to meet with the stick, playing on console, of course, for you to see any change on screen whatsoever. I measure this roughly to be like 5%, which is obviously extremely small, but it's not negligible. It's really not. First of all, Hunt Showdown has all of this uneven terrain. Even in this field, there's a hill in the center. Anyone running up the hill or running down the hill, if you're trying to headshot them, their head is moving at exactly that kind of rate where it's just below 5%. It's very fine-tuned, fine adjustment kind of thing. You can even see the way the zombie's head bobs kind of would affect it, even though it's really more just side to side. Basically, because of that, which I could go back to and show really quick, but I'm not gonna do that. But if you want, you can rewind it and you can watch. I spent like a whole minute or two tracing the edge of certain environmental things, showing that it locks you in this axis. There's no way that I mean, there is a way, but it would be very impressive for me to actually trace this horizontal wall with the degree of accuracy that I'm doing it right now. I don't know if y'all know, there's a game called um what is it? It's PK. It's there's a golfing game, alright? Side note, I know. It's completely random, but there's a golfing game where you're golfing, like your hits on the ball are determined by how straight you can draw your right stick. If I could actually do this right here, this fast, I would be amazing in that game. I'm telling you right now, there's me just like literally just swinging my stick left and right without trying at all to be accurate and staying on the same exact plane is you're gonna have to just take my word for it. It's not something that can be easily done, truthfully. Um, and the same thing goes for the y-axis too, although it's less noticeable because it's less applicable in games. There's less times that someone is traveling completely horizontal and whatnot. But it is there. The point is that there are many times in Hunt Showdown where you're trying to lead a target and they are not moving in a single plane. Most of the time they're moving in both the X and the Y axis, which is the case for all games, but especially Hunt Showdown because of this uneven terrain. The roads are not paved. They're mostly flat, but like there's a lot less flat area than there is in say Warzone, where there's a lot of downtown urban areas where pavement completely flat. The only way someone can change plane is if they jump up on the sidewalk or something, which, or if they slide cancel everywhere. We're not gonna deep dive into that problem, but there is weird and peculiar hidden mechanics with how the aiming is on this game. Another one, well, it's not particularly hidden, but I'm fairly certain that this game uses a linear aim function. Now, what you see on most games like Call of Duty, aforementioned Battlefield, other games, is you see a S-curve, which I cannot show on screen on a stream, but like imagine the letter S but pulled straight so that it's almost linear, very almost linear. It is a very tiny S squiggle. It's almost a straight line, but it's not. That is what you see though in mainstream FPS games. Honestly, most FPS games that I know of, it's hard for me to think of an FPS game that doesn't at least allow you to change the aim curve type, or the aim function rather, if it's not a curve. Modern Warfare 2019 had the option to go through 3 different functions. One was the normal, traditional, whatever they always use for Call of Duty. Another one was actually linear, which some people may prefer. In my opinion, I don't prefer it, and not to be opinionated, it does not allow you to do the same kind of precision and while retaining like high uh, speed for reaction times, turning around, all of that. It simply does not do it. Like, basically, when you aim in a game, it's taking your stick input multiplied by your sensitivity to simplify things. Now, when you aim with an S curve, you're gonna move the stick, say, 5%, but it's only gonna actually move your aim on screen half of that. So like 2%. This is what allows you to get those super long range snipes, those headshots on people who are like 300, 400 meters away while moving in Warzone. And numerous other games. I'm not saying that this game needs, that's like 100% what it needs, is just people headshotting you from across the map, obviously. But what I would like to see is that it plays more like the PC version of the game, which we established that the developers like and support and like are content with the PC version of the game. So the PC version of the game is not some crazy like abomination where the aiming is too easy and it's turned into something that the developers don't like. So with that being understood, and they even recognize that PC has a distinct advantage over console. They don't let you use mouse and keyboard on console Hunt Showdown, and they do not let you play console versus PC on Hunt Showdown. So they clearly recognize that mouse and keyboard has a distinct advantage over console aiming. Which I'm not saying it does or it doesn't, but with this system specifically, it certainly does have a massive advantage because of the way that the aiming curve is, or the aiming function rather. So with this S curve, at the very low inputs, like the very, very smallest inputs that you can make with a stick, it's going to make them even finer. Because think about, like, do a little thought experiment with me. It's not very plausible for you to move your stick literally 1%. Most people's controllers have dead zones that are larger than 1%. Most people's controllers have stick drift that is larger than 1%. It's not really plausible for you to expect someone to move their controller stick literally 1%. Now, with S curve, for the ratio between the stick movement and the change on screen, you can move it 5% and get 2%. By cutting the input in half at the low range and then adding onto it at the high range, you get the best of both worlds. You get the fast turnaround speed and you get the very fine aiming. And the reason I say that I highly suspect that this game is linear is not only based on how the aiming actually plays, how it feels compared to other games that don't have linear or do have linear that is an option. It's not just about that. The presence of this extra turning strength feature, which certain other games have, but the presence of this feature, extra turning strength right here, is kind of a telltale sign that there is no S curve. Because if there was an S curve, you wouldn't need extra turning strength because it's built into the S curve. The same thing with moving your stick 5% and getting 2%. If you moved your stick 90%, you would get 95%. And if you moved to 80, you'd get maybe 85 or closer to 90, something like that. So when you have to turn around, when you mean to turn around, or turn sharply, or turn quickly, or whatever, any large movements, you can do that. Similarly, the extra turning strength does this for you, but it's kind of a crude substitute for the same thing. And I do like that you're able to set it. It gives you the option to set what you want the value to be. But it's still not better because of the way it works conceptually. S-curve aiming is just flat superior really to linear with extra turning strength. Another thing that makes this incredibly impactful is being on a different plane yourself. So even if you know, even if you say, the field isn't that, hilly, it's not that diverse in its elevation that it would actually make a difference. Well, what if you're up here trying to shoot someone who's moving across the field now? Because now if they run down this path, they are changing in X and Y as well. So not just them physically being higher or lower or running uphill or downhill, but just in relation to you, running towards you but also to the right of you. That would be changing X and Y. So all of these really they I love this game. I really do. This is actually my favorite FPS game of all time, and I stand by that. Even with the weird aiming stuff, I still enjoy playing it. My other friends who used to play it with me have kind of abandoned it. I can never ever get someone to actually like play this game legitimately with me because they all get tired of like either we do. First of all, we like to switch between games, and it's very hard to switch between between this game and other FPS games because of the aiming, and a lot of people find it just lackluster because of that and multiple other, I wouldn't say features, but quirks about the gameplay. So another thing I showed earlier, which is not like, I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, but I'm gonna show it here. Another thing that would be a really good improvement to Hunt is responsiveness in the context of certain actions. I don't want like reload canceling and all of that silliness. I really like where the game is and how far apart it is from other FPS games. But I must say, like, it would be greatly beneficial. Oh shit, I'm on timer still too. Forgot. Anyway, it would be greatly beneficial for this game to have some sort of faster response time in relation to certain actions like meleeing when you're reloading, or whatever, like canceling the reload to melee is what I really mean. So if I shoot, I can go for a reload right here, and I will hammer the melee button. I'm pressing it, and that's how fast you can do it. That's exactly how fast you can cancel it if you haven't already started putting new rounds in. If you have, I'm spamming it right here, you have to do the whole rest of the animation, and there is no priority. It doesn't matter if someone's running at you with the bomb lance. Doesn't matter if they have a shotgun and you have a brawler or what's the other one? Claw variant. It doesn't matter at all. You're gonna finish that animation if it costs your life to do so. Which that's kind of like a really not. I understand like I don't expect this game to just cater to my every whim, but I think a lot of people would agree that if there was a little bit of priority between things like being able to melee like immediately and whatnot, I think that would be a really good change because I'm pretty sure if you set yourself on fire, you can cancel the animation. Like if you're doing a reload, I'm pretty sure you can just like it immediately goes into bandaging or putting out the flames or whatever. Correct me if I'm wrong, that may not be the case, but I'm pretty sure because it just puts your hands down, it just I don't know, like magically works for some reason. Anyway, we haven't even covered the other stuff that I have in this long list. I've made a list because eventually it was talked about so much between me and other people who share the same gripes that I went and I went and I did a lot of testing and I did a lot of searching for solutions, and I created this little list. But we haven't even scratched the surface yet. I mentioned Dead Zone earlier. I don't think I have to speak a whole lot about that. This is the only competitive first-person shooter game I can even think of that doesn't have a Dead Zone setting. It certainly should, because this is a high-risk, high-reward skill strategy kind of shooter, and that is a I wouldn't say a make or break feature, but it is very impactful, and every other game has it, and I just don't see why. I don't see any reason for Hunt Showdown to not have a Dead Zone setting. Um, people people don't have perfect controllers. Controllers themselves are not really perfect. It is what it is. We like being able to set Dead Zone, and quite frankly, in my opinion, being able to set the sensitivity of the triggers would be also incredibly incredibly helpful to this game. And when I say sensitivity of the triggers, I just mean like some people have like super sensitive triggers that like you accidentally touch them and they, you know, your character fires his gun or something like that. Weird things happen to controllers, and I just don't think that uh, we. I think that it's an easy thing to implement in the game, and it should be there. There's no reason for it not to be there, and all it does is benefit. It doesn't destabilize the game. It doesn't ruin the game. It doesn't, it doesn't have any downsides to adding these things. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about Dead Zone because that's self-explanatory. You can look up what Dead Zone is. I pretty much explained it But you can look up what Dead Zone is if you like. What else in this list? Oh yeah, a separated interaction button. That I did show that earlier. I was shooting over a gate on purpose and trying to show how reloading is basically impossible without doing some weird shit. And that weird shit would include looking at the sky, looking at the ground, turning your back towards the target, which really looking at the sky and turning to the ground are doing, basically. Let me see if I can't find a little outpost that I can show more of what I'm talking about. I showed it already with the gate earlier when I was shooting into the little commons area at the ranch, but like I think this is in. I'm pretty sure this is in. I hope this is in. I'm pretty sure it is, though. It's just barely. Alright. So imagine you're in a game and you are waiting for the bounty. You see the bounty and you're ready to open your ambush. Now you want to reload. You fired once. You want to reload. What do? You have to back away from this window, which there are 3 other windows, so you can't just turn around. You have to like stand in the center and look into the room and away from the ladder, or you can look at the ceiling, or you can stand opposite and again look away from the ladder, and even then, you know, you get my point is that you get all of these prompts to either close a window or get on the ladder, and that is, it's a mess. Like, to say the least, it is a complete mess. There needs to be 2 types of the interactions in this game have to be split into actions and interactions. I want it so that tapping square always reloads, no matter what, always reloads. Holding square does any actions, as in things that you do yourself, not to the environment, not to other things around you, things that you just do to yourself. So bandaging if you're bleeding, putting out fire if you are on fire, namely both of those. Instead of making this press to interact, instead of making it press square to interact, this should be hold triangle. Hear me out here. Pressing triangle will still swap your weapons, but holding triangle is going to interact with ladders, doors, windows, gates, lamps, or lanterns, really, pitchforks, shovels, axes, sledgehammers. All of that is going to be binded to holding triangle, and including taking ammo and stuff like that. That is going to make it so that there are never these situations where you're trying to reload while looking out through a window or a door or next to a ladder or anything, and you can't reload your single shot rifle, which this game has many of. Or you are standing next to a lamp, as in one that you can't move in the environment, or an object, or a door while you're set on fire, and you can't put out the fire because it continually prioritizes picking up the object that's next to you or opening the crank door whenever you hold square. In a game where you can permanently lose your health for the remainder of the match very easily, I might add. I mean, it takes like half a second to burn off a 25 if it's already empty. In a game where that is the case, it is not really. I don't mean to be super harsh on them because again, this is my favorite game, and the developers actually take care of this game. They don't allow things like metas to ruin it. They like all the guns that are in the game to be usable in the game. They're great, but it's kind of inexcusable to have a system where you can permanently lose health, i.e. burned off, and you need to banish or you need to leave the game and use skill points to get it back. And also a like situation that isn't even entirely uncommon. It's if you run solo, it's not entirely uncommon for you to get into like quite a twist with all of the mobs chasing you and other hunters chasing you, and you're just overwhelmed and you can't bandage when you're trying to bandage or put out fire when you're trying to put out fire, and that's kind of a huge issue. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I illustrated this quite well. It's obviously more noticeable on the single shot rifles than it is with the any of the others, but it's still it is still a problem with the bolt actions and stuff like that, especially if you don't have bullet grubber. Just gonna waste a bullet for no reason because maybe you did want to close the window, but it happens to be the same keybind, so you can't really choose. You cannot actually choose whether you like. You can try to fish for the prompt first, but maybe you're being shot at and you don't get it or something. Prompts are another thing on the list, actually in themselves. Making the prompts bigger so that you don't have to actually like fish for it, like you don't have to like look directly at a lantern to be able to pick it up. Instead, you can just be standing next to it and facing it approximately and pick it up. That would be great. They're not terribly small as it is, but it is, it's they're inconveniently small, so that's not like something I'm desperate for change on, but it would be very nice to have those prompts just a little bit bigger, the hitbox for, picking up the item or whatever, however you want to call it. Low-key trying to test out these settings that got suggested. I like them. I also like the old, how I had it before. I think I like these better because of the fine adjustments. I couldn't do that before. Okay, I don't know if I covered this. I did a little bit of the reloading stuff. Staging the reloads though. So like, if I go to reload and I swap or I do something, I have to still eject the cartridge again. And this is not a huge thing on the Trapdoor Springfield because of the way it reloads. But if you play with the sparks or something, you're gonna have to like why the sparks? Because the sparks doesn't have an ejector. The Springfield trapdoor does. It automatically ejects the round when you open the breach, and as opposed to the sparks rifle, the sharps obviously, it you have to open the breach and then slide the spent round out of it. And it takes considerably longer, and you will do that every single time until you fully reload and finish the animation. There is no... You can't pull the case out and put the new case in on a separate action, which is, it's not a huge problem. Again, it's like the other thing, it's just a minor quality of life thing. But if you looked just at what I did right there, like in the animation for reloading the Schofield or the Scott field in the game already knew that there was no cartridges in there because I just ejected it. I ejected it, I interrupted the reload animation, and then I finished it. The game already knew that there were no spent cases in there. So when I went to do it, even though again it has ejectors, automatic ejectors in it, so it makes no difference in the time of the reload animation itself. But I know that what I'm talking about is possible because the game recognizes whether the chamber is empty or not. And not just like empty, like a live round versus a spent round, like whether there is actually brass in the chamber or if it is completely empty. So again, doesn't make a big deal on the rifles with ejectors, but the sparks will benefit from it. The that's really the big one. I'm trying to think what else. I don't really use it that often, but the Nitro Express might benefit from it. The Romero might benefit from it if people are not gonna completely just use the Alof's conversion thing with the tube magazine from now on. They probably will, but like, you know, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, all these single shot guns that don't have ejectors on them are gonna benefit from being able to be fired and have the brass taken out without having to put a new round in if they do have to interrupt it, if they have to melee something, or if they have to switch their sidearm and shoot something, or if they have to interact with a ladder or close a crank door or anything like that. Let me see what else is in this list. Back to the melee, I know I've already gone over it once, but that's these last like 2 or 3 things are the not features again, but like the quirks. These last 3 things are really main reasons why people will say things like Hunt Showdown feels clunky, it doesn't feel like it's a proper FPS game, it doesn't feel like it was made properly or ported properly to console or whatever, you know, like, and I hate to see that because again, this is honestly my favorite game and I want to see it get taken care of. It's been taken care of so far really well, and I want to see it continue to get taken care of in the future. And these little things where you go to reload and you can't melee until a whole second later, or even though your gun may be like a brawler variant or a claw variant, you know, this one is not, but um yours may be, and you may need that. You may need to slash someone or use the knuckles, you know. I can think of like a lot of scenarios where, I mean, I'm sure we're all very familiar with the melee combat on Hunt console specifically. There are so many people who struggle with the aiming that they will not like do any long range. They only do shotguns and melee weapons, and I totally understand where that comes from. But you also, on the flip side, have a lot of success on console with melee weapons because so many people just completely blow past you, even in like the mid-range. They won't hit their shots. But this is not a discussion about how people play on console. It's not about that. This is really about the game mechanics. Um, I've really touched on the main points that I want to talk about and show in game. I can post a link to what an S-curve looks like in the description, seeing as I can't, you know, I can't do anything like that on a live stream. I don't have the that kind of software running it through like a PC with a in-time editor, real-time editor. But I can leave like an Imgur link or something in the description or in a comment showing what an S-curve would look like for aiming, and if that didn't make sense to you, the description of how it reduces the small inputs while exaggerating the larger inputs. I understand how that can be hard for some people to understand if they're not familiar with the way that like aiming is coded for console games. I'm not a programmer myself, so when I say I expect these things to be easy, that's like I'm not trying to downplay it. I very much envy anyone who has the ability to understand code and whatnot. I think that's I don't know. I'm very jealous of those people. But um I do, however, know like the basics of like how stuff gets implemented on like a UI scale, you know, or not scale, but like from the interface point of view, I guess you could say. Anyway, let me see if there is anything else here. Last, very, very last thing, there are a few perks that could use rebalancing because of how far we've come in the game. Um, this video, I refuse to make it about, oh, boohoo, this is too OP, this needs to be nerfed or whatever. But I will say, however, I think we can all agree that Conduit is almost completely useless. The perk in-game Conduit. If you don't know, it gives you a health boost when you get a clue. I think it may work on when you pick up a bounty, I'm not sure. I know 100% it works when you get a clue. This is a completely useless perk because now we have what is that? We have another perk that gives you health whenever you kill a enemy in close range, like a zombie or something. I forget what it's called right now. I Ironic because I like having that perk a lot, but um Conduit could definitely use a buff. My suggestion for the buff is have it extend the range of Serpent for clues only, not for Serpent to like snag a bounty. And my suggestion is increasing the range by 25%. What this would do is a lot of the time you have to actually get right up to a building and then serpent it. This would simply allow you to serpent it, like, instead of going all the way up to the outside wall of the building. Instead, you may be able to serpent it from just a little bit further away, instead of like crossing a street or something like that. Did I? Fuck. I forgot. I'm sorry. I do not make videos, public videos that is, and especially I do not make videos with me talking about things very often. Totally forgot about the suggested solution to uh to the interaction buttons. Um I think the last thing I said was holding triangle would give you every in-world environmental interaction, as in like picking up a sledgehammer, picking up a lantern, picking up ammo, picking up a gun in quick play or off of a dead hunter, or in a little outpost if you find a gun there. Um, Closing doors, opening windows, all of that would be done with holding triangle. Many of you, I'm sure, were immediately thought, well, triangle is what you're holding right now to do keep lowered state in if you have that on in your settings, and that is true. We could very easily move that to holding down the sprint button. First of all, when you sprint, you already have the weapon animation in that like orientation. You know, you already have the gun either pointed up or down depending on whether it's a pistol or a long arm. So I'm pretty sure that no one would like be bothered if we just swapped those two controls around. It's pretty intuitive because again, they're already in that orientation, the lowered state when you do run around. So holding the sprint button either while running or just while still to change whether it's lowered or aimed, I don't think that would be an issue. But I totally forgot to mention the first time, went off on a huge tangent in the little sniper tower. Let me think. Is there anything else? this is not a suggestion, but what this just a general question. What do we think about perk rebalancing in general? Um, I would like to open it up for discussion because uh, there's a ton of perks that just they don't make sense to have on their own. Dewclaw and Assailant, Bladeseer and Vigilant. I'm not gonna list all of them, but there are a bunch of perks that are so inexpensive and so niche that they could easily be paired together and it wouldn't be game breaking in the slightest, and if anything it would just either give you a benefit that you like may not notice, or you might notice it and might be able to pair something together with it, but still while remaining far under like anything overpowered. This is not for perks that like directly complement each other, so like steady aim and steady hands, that those should definitely be separate perks and stay separate perks. Levering and fanning should not be combined. Doctor and physician should not be combined. So it's not for any of those. It's just like at this point we have like 40 or 50 perks, different perks, and obviously you only get like 15 slots. Um, I'm all for the variety and whatnot, but like because some of them are so niche, it is like you have to go out of your way and basically disadvantage yourself on that character until you remove the perk, which costs blood bonds or whatever to do. Yeah, you basically have to disadvantage yourself on that character to actually use some of these perks because of just how inapplicable they are, how niche they are, how off to the side and out of the way they are, which is kind of sad because there are, I mean, they just don't get used. They're like things that the developers added that just don't get noticed whatsoever. That is the last thing on this list though. Gonna close up the stream, maybe be able to actually run this into a script, maybe be able to convince someone else to run this into a script, don't know. Need to consolidate these ideas. I am pretty sure that's everything here. Yeah. Alright, cool. Alright, I end the stream now.